Hello and welcome to the latest in Nemorin film and video series of video production masterclasses. Today we're going to have a little look at reformatting or reversioning video content for use across different platforms. So I'm joined by my colleague Tom, one of our amazing producers, and we're just going to have a little chat about the pros and cons of reversioning, how you go about it before giving you a little demo. So Tom, could you just explain very briefly what reformatting or reversioning is?
I suppose the idea of reversioning is basically recycling content across different platforms. So from what I see, there's a couple of ways you can do this. The first one is taking existing assets and creating new content from it. So if you've already done a shoot, then you might be able to go back into those rushes, see what footage you've got, and see what other videos you can make from it later down the line. But another way of doing it is planning ahead of the shoot at the beginning of the campaign, which platforms, which social media platforms you're going to be pushing your content out onto, and then designing the content with that in mind. So generally we shoot 16:9, so landscape, but things like Instagram, where the feeds are generally favor square videos and the stories generally favor vertical videos. It means there's opportunities to optimize your content for different platforms. So it's reaching different audiences in different ways.
So in an ideal world, you plan the distribution strategy, if you like, before you even thought about going to production, just to make sure that the production crew knows which platforms the content is going to appear on?
Exactly. So I think certainly in the last few years, when social media videos sort of began to become more prominent, previously people would shoot 16:9 because that's kind of the way that they've always done it, and that's good for YouTube. And then afterwards they might think, oh, we should put this on Instagram, we should put this on whatever, Snapchat, and then try and retrofit that 16:9 frame into a vertical frame, which doesn't always necessarily work. So ideally what you want to do is plan your content at the beginning and design your frames in a way that they will work for all of these multiple platforms. So that means shooting generally with the subject in the middle of the frame so that you can chop off the edge to make it square, or you can make it super narrow, vertical, and then you'll always kind of have the same thing. Obviously that can be quite limiting depending on what you want to shoot. So what we're actually doing, what we've done with a campaign recently, is shoot every scene twice. So we go in with the camera 16:9 and we shoot everything the way that we want it to be, landscape, which will go on YouTube. And then we'll basically flip the camera on the side, and so it's vertical, and then shoot differently. So that way, when we're in the edit, we're not losing details on frames. We're not, kind of missing off anything important, basically.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I guess, that's the ideal world scenario. Clearly, we're not living in an ideal world right now. We're locked down. Nobody can send crews anywhere unless it's for news purposes. So it strikes me that kind of reversioning and reformatting is a really good way of producing new video content right now from existing assets that may have been, for example, just shot for a brand's YouTube channel, but they could roll it out on Instagram or wherever.
If you've done a campaign previously and you've shot an interview with someone, then you're going to have chopped a load of stuff out, maybe because it wasn't relevant for that particular message that you wanted to tell at that time. But it's so useful if you've got all this stuff sitting on hard drives, going back through it, back into the rushes, looking at it with a fresh pair of eyes, and just thinking, okay, what didn't we use the first time that we can put together, repurpose into a new piece of content? Could be a promo film, could be a new documentary using things that weren't used. Maybe there were some people that you talked to who you didn't put in your original video. You can go through and you can grab all of that stuff, and you can just keep creating content, keep your audiences engaged.
So what if you need to make vertical videos, but you haven't actually shot for that particular format?
Sure. So, I mean, like you said, in an ideal world, you can plan everything with the platforms in mind. But if you're in a situation where you are going back through old rushes, or you have a 16:9 video and you want to put it on Instagram stories, maybe you didn't have an Instagram account beforehand and you've now just got one, whatever it is, it is really easy to convert things into different formats. And actually the software that we use, the editing software, Premiere Pro, has introduced a new feature. It's super simple to get these 16:9 videos and just chop them up into vertical, square, whatever it is you need.
Great. Speaking of that software, I think we're going to have a little demo now from our colleague James. So James, over to you.
Thanks, Graham. Right now I have Premiere 2020 open, and you can see I have a few clips in the timeline. Just scrolling for this example edit, you can see I have multiple different scenarios. The composition of these clips have a key focus. This is important, as when we reversion this video, we will need to crop out parts of the frame. To start reversioning, first I'll right click my sequence and click Auto Reframe Sequence. Next I'll pick what ratio I'll need, and finally tell Premiere what type of motion the sequence has. By clicking Create, it'll make a new sequence, and as you can see, the software has done a pretty good job tracking the video, so the focus areas are in frame. With a bit of tweaking, you'll be able to make your 16:9 videos into a host of different ratios. Perfect for all social media platforms.